Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to this episode of my podcast, which is about resurrection cycles. So, I contemplated this info when it was Holy Week last month in April, and I did a lot of meditating on what this resurrection cycle means to me today. So, some time in meditation and contemplation on the actual Christ resurrection and what it means for me personally, as well as what does it mean for everyone in general. So, what I'm not getting into is the traditional sense of like the religious view of Jesus died for our sins to save us. Um, I'm leaning more into the Gnostic viewpoint as to what was Yeshua and Mary Magdalene kind of working together and showing us to do with the ultimate example of the actual crucifixion and a physical resurrection. So, this is more along the lines of showing us as an example of what to do in our lives in order to become divine ourselves, to get in touch with our divine piece of our soul. um, and this is not an invitation or an opportunity for anyone who disagrees and wants to go the traditional religious route to debate with me. I'm not going to debate. I won't even respond. I got a lot of crap on my socials when I first posted the blog version of this. And it's just, I'm not going to engage because we don't have the same theology, we don't have the same beliefs, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to convert people. I'm speaking to my audience who is kind of along the same lines with me, or at least just open to listening to it. I'm not trying to convert people. I'm not here to do that. That's not my purpose in this life at this time. I'm also not going to like educate you necessarily on the Gnostic viewpoint or the metaphysical viewpoint, at least not in this episode. This is about making meaning of the resurrection in our daily lives, not just Easter. So, that being said, here's what came to me in my meditation. So, the Christ resurrection event is a story of metamorphosis, basically. So, like a butterfly goes through metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly. By the way, a butterfly actually started hovering around me as I was preparing for this specific meditation, which was just like a, "Yep, you're on the right track" to me from my guides. So, like the butterfly, as we grow, we outgrow our current self. So, like the butterfly or the caterpillar, really, we die and shed through a falling asleep or a killing off of our ego. So, when I say ego, the ego is the part of us that worries, that acts impulsively out of fear or anger. It doubts, it creates mess. It is the ones, the ego is the one encouraging people to make comments to belittle me or to make me feel bad and has something to do with morality. Um, so the ego, however, is there to protect our bodies to keep us alive. So don't be mad at our egos and don't be mad at other people's egos. That's not the purpose of what we're here to do in this life. It's really there to keep us alive. And what does that mean? The ego is there to make sure that our bodies are not in danger. And what happens, how do we know we're in danger? We get that sense of fear. There's different biological things that kick in when we get that sense of fear. When we're faced with something that's uncomfortable, our body may accidentally perceive that as threat and fear, and that's why people act out from the ego. So thank you, ego, for keeping us alive, but we're going to kill you off many times in our lives by awakening to our higher self, our soul, our divine, our spirit, the watcher within, the witness, the self with a capital S, whatever you like to call it. It's all just different language for the same essence, the same energy, the same splinter of divine God source energy. So we know we get there when, even in the most difficult times, we feel peace and we feel certainty. Some may call this like path jumping timelines. Some may call it going through a dark night of the soul. Whatever the case is, we suddenly, even amongst the pain and the chaos, feel a sense of peace when we see a path forward, when we see a direction to take. The point is that we stop allowing our ego to control and we surrender to our soul's divine purpose. Again, if you look at the Christ resurrection story, what was the example given? Not to fight back, didn't fight back in the garden when arrested, told other people not to fight back, but this is the path I'm meant to take. This is the path I saw that I'm going to take. I'm surrendering to this purpose. It is serving a purpose. So we accept the trials that come so that we learn and grow to be more aware and ready for our next resurrection. The trials are not like a divine source that it's testing us to see if we're worthy. Like that's ego driven, that's fear driven, worthiness, morality. We are inherently worthy because we are also divine. We carry that divine love. We are worthy. The trials simply strengthen us. They help us grow. They help us to dig deeper. They help us. If we all did this, if we all did this in humanity, then all of humanity would also level up, would also vibrate at a higher vibration, would also be more loving and more accepting of each other. That's the purpose. That's what we're, meant to do in these lives that we choose to take. So, that being said, if we are living a life of ease, then we're probably not growing or learning very much. Think about someone you might know. I'm sure you know someone, or you've seen someone on TV maybe, who you would say lives like an ignorance is bliss type of lifestyle. Maybe on the surface, they seem very happy, not knowing things that are going on in the world, or even with themselves when other people can see it, or with especially underprivileged people that aren't living in as much privilege as they are. But watch them long enough. Keep watching. You notice that their distress creeps in other ways. What else is going on in their life? Addiction issues, some racism, bigotry, things, comments that come out like that. There's that fear of other. Or maybe they are perfectly kind people and loving people, but tend to spiritually bypass anything that calls their belief system into question, right? And by spiritually bypass, that can look differently for different people. So some people, I'm just going to use Christianity, for example, because that's just the tradition I was raised in. People who just say, well, I believe in Jesus, so I'm good. Like that's enough. That's enough. Like, okay, but what about that? What about that gives you the comfort? What about that justifies your actions? What about that helps you grow? That's it. To me, it's just bypassing. It's, I don't want to deal with it because I don't need to, because I believe in Jesus. That's one example. For people who are just spiritual, that there can also be bypassing there that don't belong to an organized religion. Just, you sometimes see people, well, I'm going to wear this crystal today, so I don't need to worry about this. I 100% believe that you cannot bypass because you are co-creating with the divine. You can't just leave it up to the divine like, my destiny is set, or I've already done the work, so I'm coasting through the rest of my life. That's just not how it works. We are still part of building a pattern throughout our entire life. So, yes, the divine does help with a lot of it. We do leave a lot up to the divine intelligence to figure out the nuts and bolts of how it's going to happen and how it's going to show up in our life. But when it does show up, when something shows up, when a struggle or a frustration or an opportunity shows up, we have to take a step. We have to do something. We have to affirm something. And once we set that intention, once we set that manifesting pattern, then we leave it up for our own divine timing, for however it works out. We don't need to micromanage that part of it. So I think I've said this before, but I believe like without struggle we don't grow. And in me, for me personally, I think that I was purposely I purposely chose to be born a gay man in a time period, location, and under certain circumstances of my life, because it would force me to do some major introspection from an early age till today, till present. Um, it forced me to have more self-awareness to help me grow. So, I mean, that's a blessing. That's a blessing. A lot of people would say, why did I have to be born, a minority? Why did I have to be born a marginalized person in my society? For me, I'm speaking for me, I believe that happened so that I could get started early on some of this self-awareness work because I had more work to do. So when we choose to carry our cross to Calvary, we are saying, yes, I affirm I want to live my highest, most optimal path. So as within, so without. We set that intention within us, and the universe provides a matching vibration. I can't say that I want to be a spiritual mentor and a place and source of healing for others if I'm surrounded by circumstances and people in my life that constantly suck the life energy out of me. I will have nothing to give. I will have nothing to offer. So this was me a few years ago. Whether that is a job sucking the life out of me, whether it's a relationship that is just constantly a battering ram to my nervous system, or just how I spent my free time. I still worked on my spirituality, still worked on my personal growth, but a lot of that free time was low vibrational stuff, sitting in front of a TV, which I'm not saying downtime. You can't be you can't work on your spirituality 100% of the time. Like, you need a break. You need to just do nothing sometimes. Like, absolutely. But I was doing it too much. I was doing it every single day for hours, to the point where you're getting a headache from scrolling through social media, watching TV, like doing things, you know, too much of that. Some of that downtime could have been spent in nature, some of it could have just spent quiet, um, or just being with people. But the point is, what I'm getting at is like I knew that this was sucking life energy because I felt crappy when it was happening. I felt crappy for the rest of the night. So I set an intention to be someone that conflicted with my current circumstances. I wanted to be a source of inspiration and healing for other people, and my current circumstances weren't necessarily lined up with it. I could have done it. I could have done it, but it would have been draining. It wouldn't have been as helpful as I think I am now. So the universe sent some change. But it was change in a way that made me learn and made me grow so that I could choose differently. I could choose my path differently than I had been. So over the last year, especially, I started down this path and I knew that eventually it was going to lead to some major shakeups. Major shakeups. I was scared, rightfully so. Big changes. Can I handle this? This is going to hurt. I'm going to be grieving some of these losses that are going to be coming. I sensed things that were coming that were going to be hard and uncomfortable and painful and heartbreaking. And I said yes anyway, because I knew from a deeper place, from a quiet place, that this was for my highest good. Again, it was that feeling of peace and certainty. When I really visualized that path ahead or visualized that person I wanted to be, there was peace and certainty there. I had moments of sensing that I was so supported by ancestors and angels, and consistently felt the message, be patient, be still. Because once you decide, it doesn't show up immediately. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in now where we expect immediate gratification. The thing about divine plans and divine timing is that these energy shifts tend to happen much more slowly than we anticipate, or much more subtly. Um, it's not your Hollywood version of like sitting in meditation and suddenly like you're in this trance speaking to angels and guides and all this major transformation. You feel the tingling throughout your body, and like all of a sudden you're a new person. Now, I'm not saying that that's not possible. I'm just saying it's probably less common. Um, Intuition is quiet. Intuition politely whispers. And I'm not saying I didn't do any of the work myself. Again, I did a lot of work on me. I acknowledged my faults. I acknowledged my limiting beliefs. I addressed my fears. I healed old core wounds going back to childhood. And I explored and healed by myself and with others, with helpers. I did not bypass. I did not just say, okay, well, I set the intention. It will come to me. It'll just happen. One important thing to note about the resurrection cycle is that inevitably we lose people on this journey. I've lost some people on this journey. What we do or say will piss them off, or they'll become uncomfortable with the change they see in us. They have their own path and their own journey, and sometimes we make that mistake of trying to get them to come with us the same route we took. So imagine like some forcing someone to wear your shoes when they have much bigger feet than you. That's not going to work. That's going to be uncomfortable. They're not going to be able to do it. They're going to be tripping. They're going to be in pain. You can't force someone to go down the same path of growth that you are. It's why in coaching and energy healing, I let the client lead because that's their life. We could have been in the exact same circumstance and we have so many similar personality traits. I'm still not going to tell them how to do life. That's up to them. I could certainly think about different ways, but it's their decision. They're going to take it. I'm not going to judge them for what choice they make. That's their path. That's their resurrection cycle. So sometimes we can no longer tolerate other people in our lives. We can't tolerate their behaviors. We can't tolerate the views they hold because they're suddenly no longer aligning with our evolving values and sense of self. Or sometimes we just drift apart from people for no explicit reason that we can think of in that moment at the time. But regardless, what is happening is a change of vibration. So we were once so connected with someone because we were vibrating at a similar frequency. And as, on average, we raise our vibration, we no longer sense that strong connection with each other. So let's not fall into the trap of feeling guilty or angry or resentful about it because that's ego. Instead, it is a completed resurrection cycle. Perhaps that person will cycle back into our life again, and perhaps not. That's just something that's just an informed consent, something that you need to know about growth. You might lose some people, or the relationship just may change. That's saying that people come in for a reason, a season. That's where that comes from. As you grow, you may have grown out of that season with them. So back to the Christ resurrection. Um, in my head, I can hear like the chant from the Eastern churches at Easter, which is comes from the angel in the tomb on Easter Sunday. Why do you seek the living among the dead? Why do you mourn the incorruptible among the subject to decay? So we don't need to weep for past versions of ourselves. Now, experiencing grief for who we were and who we had in our lives, absolutely healthy, absolutely normal. Feel the grief, let it happen, let it pass. But we don't need to cling or get attached to that old version of ourselves because we asked for this better version of ourselves. We asked for more. We asked for better. So thank you. I acknowledge, I express gratitude for that past version of me and for those people who were in my life. I acknowledge what a great job we did walking that path, completing that journey, and becoming the butterflies we are today. With each resurrection cycle, we become more and more attuned to the divine light within us, which is pure love, unconditional, non judgmental love. That kind of like love of a mother holding that newborn, can do no wrong, that pure love. So, how cool is that? And I think we can all agree that this world needs so much more of that type of love. Imagine if we all felt that love for at least most of the time, at least most of the day. Imagine what a different world this would be if we didn't give in to ego fears, if people didn't believe what their ego was telling them. Just because you think it doesn't make it true. So I'll leave you with an affirmation from a card from my Moon Magic deck that I pulled after I was doing this, basically writing this episode. So this is what it said. The gateway is open and the pathway is clear. My journey begins. The gateway is open and the pathway is clear. My journey begins. Breathe that in. I affirm the gateway is open and the pathway is clear. My journey begins. I also used tapping to integrate that message into my body to kind of encode it at all levels and layers. And it really started settling in. And subtly and slowly, I am having a better, I would say, like attitude towards this path I'm taking. I'm more open. I'm allowing the grief and the fear and everything to just float by. And not only that, but a lot of things keep coming to me. I'm reading a book that will suddenly talk about exactly what I'm going through and give me exactly what I need in that moment. At the same time, a social media post pops up that's helpful. At the same time, some online community I'm a part of is doing a workshop on the exact thing that I'm going through. All those synchronicities telling me you're in the right place. Absorb it, be a sponge, take it all in, integrate it into your life. And so it is. We are all risen from the dead. We are all divine. So, as you know, I am a life coach, energy healing mentor. If you are interested in me being one of your helpers on this journey and this metamorphosis and this resurrection cycle, whatever that may be for you, check out my offerings. I have coaching packages as well as single sessions. But the idea of the coaching packages is to do kind of a longer period of work on yourself because it does take more than one session for this type of work. And we can set up a free connection call for 30 minutes to kind of see if we are a good match for that. Otherwise, I invite you to just take a look around my website and see what other things I offer that might be helpful to you. And of course, my social media has a bunch of free content, some of those tapping videos, and a lot of other things that I'm just going to keep posting free content as well because I want everyone to benefit, whether you're, paying me or not necessarily. So I invite you to take a look. And until then, thank you for joining me and keep on shining. Love you.